Okay, hi everyone. So we're going to take a look at present tense verbs, but regular present tense verbs. What we have in French is we got regular verbs and we have irregular verbs. And what makes them regular is that they, generally speaking, follow a pattern, and irregular verbs don't. They have exceptions all over the place and they're really hard to conjugate. If you look at a verb, there's nothing about the look of a verb that makes it regular or irregular. So for example, let's say I have the verb to like or to love, aimer. And then I have the verb avoir. The two of them, in theory, look pretty similar. I mean, they both start with a vowel, they both end with an R. But aimer is quite regular, and avoir is super, super irregular. So it's really interesting looking at these two verbs, thinking, well, how do you know? The only way you know is either by having enough exposure to the verbs that you've seen them enough times that you think, okay, I know you, and you are a terrible verb, and I'm never using you again. Or maybe you've just memorized, you're like, which ones work and which ones do not work for you, and then you're like, okay, you're regular, you're irregular. But just simply looking at them, there's nothing about like either what they mean or how they look or the spelling that is going to tell you if it's regular or irregular. So it's kind of frustrating. Right here is just how we do regular verbs. And what's kind of nice is that every single verb in French ends in ER, IR, or RE, which is good and bad because even the irregular verbs also end in ER, IR, or RE. So it can be kind of tricky, but it's kind of nice because let's say you're looking up in a dictionary. If you see a word that ends in ER, IR, or RE, likely it's a verb. I mean, it may not be. There's still some nouns that end in those letters, but likely it could be one. It could be a verb. So there's some certain steps to conjugating a verb. To conjugate a verb is to take a verb right out of the dictionary and to take the pronoun or the person word and make meaning together, make a new unit. That's conjugating. So what I've done is I've just copied down the entire verb next to our pronouns, next to our people words, and I'm going to show you how to conjugate them. So step one would be to write down the verb. And as time goes on, you're not going to have to do this because you're just going to simply know what to do, but we're just going to baby step our way here. So let's say I'm looking at the verb to like, aimer. I've got the entire verb written down. And with each of these verbs, the very first step is you take off the last two letters. So I'm just going to take my brush, and you're going to watch me. This is pretty magical. This is pretty exciting, so hang on. I'm going to take off my ER. Ready? So I'm going like this, off all of my ER verbs here. ER, all the way gone. So that's the very first step, is that you take off the ER. With this one, you take off the IR, because again, it's just the last two letters that we take off. This is pretty exciting. Living the life here. Then with RE verbs, you take off the RE. The last two letters, all the way down. So what we are left with now is what is called the root. This is what you're going to add on all of your new letters to. The next thing we do is then we add on our endings, and then we're done. Once you add on your endings, you're finished. It's actually not so bad. The problem, though, is knowing what the endings are. And again, there's nothing that's even logical about the endings. You just simply have to memorize what they are. So here we go. And then, by the way, when we have out of screen here. When we have je and aimer, we have to contract. We have to get rid of the E and put in the apostrophe because the two vowels, French don't like that. So here we have E, O, N, S, E, Z, E, N, T, E, N, T. So what's really kind of bizarre about this, I read this book. It's a really interesting book, and it's all about the history of the French language. Apparently, somewhere in like the 17th century, it just became fashionable not to pronounce the last letters in the verbs, which is probably why a lot of these, the 6 of the 8, are pronounced the same. So for example, it's like j'aime, tu aimes, il aime, elle aime, ils aiment, elles aiment. Even though there's like letter differences all over the place, we just pronounce it M. And then finally we have aimant and aimer. So those are our two letters that we take off our two letters, and these are the new letters we put on. And again, the only reason why I know what these letters are is because I've done it enough times that it's like sunk in. But there's nothing logical. You're like, oh, je clearly takes an E. Because later on we learn that girls take an E. So you're like, well, then why does he have an E? It's just what we do, regular present tense verbs. The next thing, again, with IR verbs, it's the exact same thing. We just simply take off the two letters, and then we put on new letters. So here we are. I'm going to put on new letters. So again, we have a million S's. This is why I like this verb, because it's so tricky, but we use it a lot, so why not? It's a really good verb. We've now just conjugated two verbs. We just have to look up the letters so we know which new ones to go in. But in theory, every other regular IR verb is going to conjugate the same way. You take off the last two letters of the IR verb, even if it's, let's say, a 30-letter verb. The last two come off, these endings go on, and then it is conjugated correctly. Kind of kind of not so bad. It's just the letters in red, you have to memorize them. There's really nothing logical. You're not like, oh, clearly a group of girls gets ISSENT. Like, that's not even logical. So here we are, next ones. This one is also very confusing. Probably my least favorite of the verbs because it looks bizarre. Like, why do we have S's here and then nothing and nothing? Like, it seems just so the opposite. Normally you're like, take stuff away, put stuff back on, and here we're like, just keep it away. Nothing goes back. But this is how it's done. So we always take off the last two letters, and then what we put on is something that we're just going to have to memorize or get used to seeing, and then it makes a little bit more sense. So, so again, the first part is what we call the root. This is what we call the ending. And there's three conjugated verbs, ER, IR, and RE.